When you're solving word problems, it's important to be able to follow the steps in order to arrive at a correct solution. Going over these steps, the first step is very fundamental, is to read the problem. And then step two is even more fundamental, read the problem again. A lot of times, when we read a word problem, we just have to get ourselves familiar with it. And then in step two, this is when we're really trying to figure out what the problem's asking, what the problem's giving us. In step three, this is when we should identify what is given and what the unknown is. And we can identify what is given by underlying keywords, writing down important numbers that they tell us. And of course, the unknown is always going to be our variable, our x, and that's what we're trying to find. In step four, we're needing to create an equation. And this is something that we either create on our own, or we can find an equation that's already available to us that we can use. And then step five, which is probably, I consider, the easier step, because after we have our equation, we're just solving the equation for x. So let's look at a couple of examples following these steps, making sure that we can execute this technique of solving word problems. So in our first example, the problem reads, the sum of three consecutive odd integers is 135. Find the numbers. And if you're following the steps, our step two, read it again. The sum of three consecutive odd integers is 135. Find the numbers. So we need to identify what is given. Okay? And we can do this by identifying keywords. First of all, the sum means to add. Okay, so we are adding three consecutive odd integers. Okay, we need to know what consecutive odd integers are. An integer are just those whole numbers that we think of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so on. But an odd integer are just the odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And consecutive means that they're one right after the other. 1, 3, 5 are three consecutive odd numbers. 9, 11, 13 are three consecutive odd numbers. So we're trying to find those three consecutive odd integers where the sum is 135, and this is a keyword for equal to. So we don't know what these consecutive odd integers are, so we are going to identify those. We'll let x be the first consecutive odd integer. And so if x is the first odd integer, then the second odd integer would be x plus 2. It's x plus 2 because if you think about it, by applying real numbers into it, if your first odd integer is 11, then your next odd integer would be 13. And you have to add 2 to 11 to get the number 13. In the same way, you have to add another 2 to get the third odd integer. If 11 is your first integer and 13 is your second integer, then 15 would be your third integer. And you would have to add 4 to 11 to get your number 15. And so that works in any situation, no matter what your number is. So your three consecutive odd integers in terms of x is x, x plus 2, and x plus 4. And so now we're saying that the sum of these three numbers is equal to 135. So this is step 4 where we are creating our equation. And so we can just add our three numbers together and set them equal to 135. And now from this step, we follow the steps in solving an equation. We combine like terms. X plus x is 3x. 2 plus 4 is 6. And so we subtract 6 from both sides, giving us 3x equal 129. And then when we divide by 3 in this final step, 129 divided by 3 is 43. So our three consecutive odd integers are 43, 45, and 47.